Daniel Tiger is one of the most famous cartoons on TV. And did you know that a bunch of cartoons blatantly copied him because of that? Blue's Clues is one of those shows that everyone has seen. What almost nobody notices is how much it directly connects with the universe of Daniel Tiger. It's not just a similarity in style or educational vibe. The connection is much more direct than it seems. Both shows were born from the same creative mind. Can you believe that? Angela Santomero is the name behind both hits. She's the one who brought both Blue's Clues and Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood to TV. And that explains a lot. Blue, just like Daniel, gets frustrated when she can't find what she's looking for and needs to learn how to deal with that. The big difference is that the little dog interacts with a real human friend, while Daniel lives surrounded only by animated characters. Aside from that, the structure, tone, and educational purpose follow very similar paths. And I bet you didn't expect that one, right? To be honest, neither did I. And that's why I love discovering this. And you? You know what else you're going to love discovering? About the next cartoon, which I'm sure you know very well. And we're going to show you that right now. So subscribe to the channel and get ready for another zigzag. Daniel Tiger is so iconic that he ended up becoming a template. And no, we're not talking about obscure characters. One of the most obvious, inspired ones might be right under your nose, George Pig. While one is an educational little tiger and the other a chaotic little pig, the foundation of both is the same. Both are very young, learning how to deal with emotions, rules, and everyday frustrations. And when something doesn't go the way they want, poor whoever has to hear the crying. How many times have you seen George cry because his dinosaur broke? In Peppa Pig, he tries to take control of his sister's TV even when it's not his turn, and that doesn't end very well. Meanwhile, in Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Daniel himself melts down when Elena sits on the bench he wanted, even though she got there first. Different situations, identical reaction. The only real difference between the two is that Daniel explains everything by singing, while George solves everything by imitating a dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
In the end, the animal changes, the setting changes, but the behavior is the same. Daniel talks too much. George barely talks at all, but the inspiration is clear. Just like the next one, which we're about to show you now. There is a cartoon called Plim Plim, released in 2011, that almost no one connects to Daniel Tiger. But when you meet Hoggy, the similarities start screaming. Hoggy is a small pig, grumpy and contrary. He likes to play and have fun, but completely shuts down when it comes to sharing anything. Sound familiar? Yeah. Just like Daniel, Hoggy is immature, loses his patience easily, and is constantly getting frustrated. But there's an even more suspicious detail. Hoggy always carries a saxophone, a wind instrument that is very close to a trumpet, and anyone who knows Daniel knows that music is practically part of his personality. Doesn't seem like a random choice, does it? Who knows? Maybe it was even made as a form of tribute. Or because other kids who already like Daniel would like this one too, if it were as similar as possible. Do you also think it was a tribute? Or a blatant copy? Comment with the hashtag Daniel down below so we can know. Remember Rugrats? One of the most iconic cartoons of Nickelodeon's golden era. And in the middle of all that chaos, there was Angelica Pickles, a character who, surprisingly, has more in common with Daniel Tiger than it seems. At first glance, Angelica is seen as the villain of the story. Bossy, selfish, full of questionable attitudes. But calm down, that doesn't make her a bad girl. Just like Daniel, she's just someone learning where the limits are. Both Angelica and Daniel mess up because they are still figuring out what is right and wrong. That's why the adults step in, explain, correct, and turn every mess into a lesson. Angelica has even gone as far as kicking her own uncle just to get candy. Over the top? Yes. But it's easy to imagine Daniel having a similar meltdown when something doesn't go his way. The difference is the path to learning, not the mistake itself. And the fact that Angelica is a little girl and Daniel is literally a tiger. I don't know about you, but I'd rather annoy a bratty little kid than a tiger. Deep down, neither of them is bad. They're children under construction, stumbling as they learn how to be better people. And when you realize that, it becomes clear that even characters from different eras share the same emotional DNA that Daniel Tiger helped popularize. And speaking of Nickelodeon cartoons, remember Ni Hao Kai-Lan? In that show, there's a character who is basically an out-of-control version of Daniel Tiger, Ho-Ho. While Daniel learns how to deal with feelings by singing, Ho-Ho does the opposite. He's an explosive little monkey, loses his temper easily, and has to learn, the hard way, how to control his own anger. There's one scene you just can't handle. On a day when nothing goes his way, Ho-Ho goes up to Rintu, who, believe it or not, is a tiger, and simply punches his friend. Dude, what? A monkey hitting a tiger is way worse than poking a jaguar with a short stick, especially when we remember that Daniel himself has had moments when he almost crossed the line. The difference is that Daniel keeps his therapy up to date. Like when he got furious at his sister Margaret for knocking over his toy fence and almost hit her, but managed to control himself in time. Ho-Ho feels like the what-if version of Daniel Tiger. What if he didn't learn to hold back? What if anger won? The result is a more aggressive, more chaotic character, and one that makes it clear how other cartoons knew exactly who they were copying. Maybe you're wondering how we know that all these characters drink from the same source. The answer is much simpler and older than it seems. Daniel Tiger didn't come out of nowhere. He is the direct heir of a classic program called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which aired back in 1970. Yes, more than half a century ago. Enough time to plant ideas that continue to be recycled to this day. That's exactly why some cartoons on our list are older than Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, and the logic still holds up. Daniel premiered in 2012. Peppa Pig arrived on TV in 2004. But everything that shaped Daniel comes from a show much older than both of them. So yes, it makes sense to say that George Pig was inspired by Daniel, because the emotional DNA that created the little tiger already existed decades before he was born. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who came first on TV. What matters is where the original idea came from. And now that you know this origin, it becomes easier to notice how many Daniel Tigers keep being recreated in disguise out there. Few people notice it, but Pocoyo also easily makes the list of characters shaped by Daniel Tiger, and when you compare the two calmly, the similarity jumps right out. Just like the little tiger, Pocoyo is curious, restless, and turns any game into an imaginary world. Both are constantly exploring, testing limits, and learning through experience, almost always in the messiest way possible. The two also share another important detail, a younger sister. Daniel has Margaret, Pocoyo has little Bee, and in both shows, the focus is on teaching basic life lessons, like behaving better and even picking up your own trash. But not everything is made of calm lessons. Pocoyo, just like Daniel, has trouble sharing and sometimes acts pretty selfish, like in that episode where he builds a wall just to separate himself from Duck after they fight over a silly toy. An exaggerated reaction, but a very familiar one. You know what else is familiar? The subscribe button down below. Just click it and turn on the bell to automatically receive the best videos about the best cartoons. In 2011, a cartoon called Franklin and Friends came out. At first glance, it seems like just another calm little story, until you realize it follows a very similar path to Daniel Tiger. Here, the main character isn't a tiger, but a turtle. Even so, Franklin also loves to play, explore, and learn while having fun. You swap the animal, but the idea stays almost exactly the same. A calm character, favorite toys close by, and lessons popping up out of nowhere. The similarities go beyond behavior. Both have an attachment to very specific stuffed toys. Daniel can't live without Tygo, his blue stuffed tiger. Franklin, on the other hand, has Sam, a stuffed puppy, also blue. Way too much of a coincidence to ignore. The difference is that Franklin tends to be more well-behaved. He learns, gets frustrated sometimes, but rarely crosses the line like the little tiger does. Honestly, I've always thought this Franklin cartoon was kind of boring. What about you? But in the end, Franklin feels like a slightly more mature version of the same formula. Less tantrums, more calm, more boredom, more sleep. But the foundation is similar. And that shows that even swapping a shell for fur, the spirit of Daniel Tiger keeps showing up in the most unexpected places. Which one of these is your favorite cartoon?